Hello, and welcome back to My Purple Song Home. My name is Latoya, but you can call me Toya. Welcome to all of the new folks looking at my channel. I am so blessed to have you here. Happy Hump Day. So last week, I tried a Tuesday. This week, I am trying out a Wednesday. So hopefully this will be a good fit. I don't know yet, but we will see. I just want to start off by saying thank you to all of those people that have subscribed to my channel. I never thought that I would get to 15 people, let alone almost 200 people. I do strive to hit as many people as I can. So if you have not already, please share this channel with someone who needs a pick-me-up, an inspirational message, a message saying that they are not alone in whatever they are facing on a daily basis. Because Lord knows, I've been through it all. I have been through it all. And I know what it is to suffer in silence and not think that no one else is dealing with that problem but you. I want you to know that that's not the case at all. We have all dealt with certain things in our life. Maybe it's not the exact same thing that you are dealing with, but it may be a variation of something that you are dealing with. So I just want you to know that you are not alone. You are loved. God's got you. I got you with the word. Welcome. So today I want to talk about something that a lot of us struggle with. And I promised you a story time 2 weeks ago, I think. Or no, it was last week. In last week's video, I promised you a story time of something that I just recently dealt with. And I am going to fulfill that promise of telling you what I have been dealing with over the last three or 4 weeks or so. I'm not going to tell you the ending of the story right away because I want you to sit with the story for just a minute without me giving away what happened in the end. I want you to put yourself in my shoes because I'm going to tell you a story about a door that was open for me, and on paper, it was beautiful. It was a good door, a really good door. It has to do with a job. It was more money, a good position, a good organization. I've been trying to get at this organization for years. And yet I had to wrestle with whether or not I was going to walk through that door or not. And here's the thing. Sometimes the hardest thing that God will ask you to do isn't walking away from something that's obviously bad. Sometimes the hardest thing he'll ask you to do is to walk away from something that's actually good. Because if something's bad, it's easy to walk away, right? You don't have to wrestle with it. You can say, yep, that's not for me, and you can move on with your life. But when something looks good, when it makes perfect sense to you, when everybody around you will probably tell you to take it, that's different. Because now you're not just choosing between good and bad. You're choosing between what looks good and what God is saying. And those are not always the same thing. So I'm gonna tell you what happened, and I'm gonna jump right into it because it is quite a lengthy story because I'm gonna take you back in time just a little bit. So let's talk about it. So y'all know I started a new job about a month and a half ago now. And I really like this job. Let me make that clear from the beginning. I do like this job because that's important to this story. This wasn't a situation where I was miserable. I wasn't sitting at my desk saying, Lord, please get me out of this job and into a new one. I wasn't doing that at all. But actually, this job is pretty much everything that I prayed for, minus the salary. I prayed for the work that I'm doing. I prayed for the responsibility. I prayed for the people that I worked with, the autonomy that I have, the ability to come in and have ideas and actually get to put those ideas into play. I'm excited about the work that I'm doing, and that's important because sometimes I feel as if we feel that if something better comes along, that means God is telling us to leave what we currently have. We automatically equate more to better, more money, more prestige, more responsibility, more recognition. And we don't stop to ask, God, is this actually mine? Anyway, let me stop preaching just yet. So I was 2 weeks into this job. I think I was 2 weeks into this job, and I get a call from this new opportunity. One that I applied to back in April, around the same time that I applied to this current position. So because I don't remember, like I remembered applying to this job, but I didn't remember the details. But so I look up the position of what I applied to, and there it was. All I saw was the minimum salary. It's $15,000 more than what I make now. 15,000 American dollars. Now listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that I was not interested. I was very interested, okay? Because let's be real. I'm not going to sit here and give you any overly spiritual answer and pretend like money doesn't matter. Money matters. I got bills. I'm trying to build my savings back up because of, the season that I went through just now, having the part-time job and building my business up. So there are money goals that I have. And who is trying to work until they are 90 years old? Not me. Not me. So when I saw that wonderful detail, I said yes to the phone interview. The phone interview was on a Tuesday with the hiring manager. It was supposed to be on Teams. You could get on Teams and show your face, or you didn't have to. So I go down to my car, I pull up Teams, and nothing happened. It was not working. Now, y'all, I have been on Teams on my phone specifically 20 million times, not only with every company that I've been with, but I have a personal account with Teams as well. Nothing was clicking. Nothing was happening. It would not let me log in. I'm sitting in my hot car trying and trying and trying. 5 minutes pass, 20 minutes pass, and I just give up. And I'm thinking, what in the world is happening? Okay, so I finally said, okay, I'm done. This isn't meant to be. So I called my sister up. I said, maybe it's God intervening. Maybe this is my answer, that I need to stay put, that I don't need to go anywhere. Maybe this is supposed to be a closed door for me. But then I emailed the manager. And I was telling her what happened, and instead of her saying just like, thank you for letting me know, we don't have any more slots left or whatever, she goes, oh, I can reschedule. She gave me 3 separate times to reschedule. And I took one of them. I did. Listen, I wasn't going to turn down a second chance to make $15,000 more than what I'm making now because teams wouldn't cooperate. So she offered me another time slot. I picked the time slot that was an hour from when it was then. And so she took teams out of the equation and said, we'll just do it via phone. And I said, okay. And so I went back in the building, fiddled around for about an hour, went back to my car. And when I tell y'all, I rocked that interview. You would think I didn't have a job. I rocked that interview. You know how you interview when you feel like you have absolutely nothing to lose? Shoot, I already had a job. And that's how I interviewed. I was comfortable. I wasn't nervous. I was literally just running my mouth. Y'all know how I can do. So by the end of the interview, she told me that if they were interested, they would call me. She would call me next week with a second interview. I said, fine. We hung up, and that was that. I went about my day. I didn't obsess over it because, again, I have a job. I just kept living. So Tuesday rolls around and I get to work and I'm checking my personal email. I open up my email. I see a subject line that says congratulations. Oh boy. That's all I could say was oh boy, because I already knew what that meant. So I opened up the email and there it was. They wanted me to come in for a panel interview for this job. They gave me until Friday to respond to the invitation. Now here's where the story gets interesting because I didn't immediately say no. I responded on Thursday. Why? Because I could. Clearly they were interested. They had given me another chance even after my technical issues. I had interviewed well. And it was $15,000 more. So I thought to myself, maybe that team situation wasn't God trying to close this door for me. Maybe it was just my phone acting up. Maybe that was it. Maybe it was just a technical problem. Maybe it was the devil trying to interfere. Yeah, that's what it was. Maybe this really is my opportunity. And here's where I had to get honest with myself because I had already prayed. Lord, if you want me to have this job, please tell me. Let me know if this is what you want me to do. Lord, I want to hear your voice louder than mine. Now that can be a dangerous prayer because we often pray for God to give us what we want, but that's not what I prayed. I prayed for God to tell me what he wanted. And those are two different prayers. When you ask God to give you what you want, you're really asking him to bless your decision. But when you say, God, I want to hear your voice louder than mine, now you're surrendering the outcome. And I had to mean that. There are no backsies when you say a prayer like that. So from that Thursday until that Tuesday when the interview was, I sat with this. I prayed about it. I thought about it. I got quiet and I watched. And y'all, something started happening. The more I paid attention, the more I realized how much I liked where I currently was. At work, the things that I was actually doing, what I was working on, was giving me life. Literally. The ideas, the processes that I was putting into place, they were giving me life. People were responding to my work. My leadership was talking about sending me to training in October. They wanted me to join different professional organizations. Anything that I needed to do my work better, they were giving me. Leadership was talking about me becoming the spokesperson for the department in their absence. That was not a part of my job. And because of the amount of work that I was doing, they wanted me in the office more, because part of my job is going to different events and, doing photography, videography, all of the things that I do in my personal life. But they wanted me to be in the office because of my strategic thinking, all of the things that I was putting into place. They loved that. So they wanted me to have help. They are hiring someone to be my assistant. Y'all, do you understand what was happening? I was not asking God to make my current job better. That's not what I was doing. I was asking God to show me what He wanted, and He started showing me what I already had. Sometimes God doesn't answer your question by giving you something new. Sometimes He answers it by helping you see the value in what He has already given you. And that hit me because I already started thinking, why am I so focused on what this other job is offering me that I am not even paying attention to what God has already placed in my hands? And that's a question that I think we all need to ask ourselves sometimes. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that every opportunity that comes after you getting blessed is a temptation. That's not what I'm saying at all. And I'm definitely not saying that every higher paying job is outside of God's will. Absolutely not. Sometimes God does open those doors that gives you more money. Sometimes He does move you into a bigger position. Sometimes the next season does come with more. The problem isn't the opportunity. The problem is that we assume that because something is good, that it must be from God. And that's where we get ourselves in trouble. Because something can be good and still not be yours. Think about it. A relationship can be good, but that doesn't mean it's your relationship. A house can be beautiful, but that doesn't mean it's your house. An opportunity can be legitimate and still be a distraction from what God is doing in your life right now. And sometimes the enemy does not have to offer you anything terrible. He just has to offer you something good. That's enough. Because if he can get you to leave something that God is building, you don't have to be doing something bad. You're simply doing something else. And sometimes something else is all it takes. So now this is where the story gets really interesting, because over that weekend, I was talking to God all day, every day. And I deliberately did not call anybody. I was tempted. Oh, was I tempted? I wanted to call my sister. I have a good friend that I usually call to talk these things out with, and I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to say to both of them, okay, tell me what you think about this. But I didn't, because I had already asked God to make His voice louder than mine. So why would I call anybody else? That doesn't make sense. I wanted to hear from Him and Him alone. So boom, Saturday afternoon, I'm sitting on my couch. The sun was setting. Y'all know I love my sunsets. The TV was off. The phone was on Do Not Disturb. I was just sitting, chilling, looking out the window, this beautiful window. And it was just me and God. I'm staring at the sky. And out of nowhere, I started crying. A lot of people don't know this about me, and you still don't know this about me. I can be a crybaby at times. You will never see me cry though. So out of nowhere, I start crying, and I heard in my spirit, Toya. Yes, he called me Toya. He said, Toya, I've already taken you through this. And immediately, I knew what he meant. 2016, let's rewind. All right, so y'all know this story. I've done a video on what happened to me. So back in 2015, I had a job at this organization. The work was okay, the people were okay, but the money was not. It was not it at all. I had actually taken a pay cut to work there, but I was so desperate to get out of my previous job that I was willing to work somewhere, and I took a pay cut. Okay, and while I was there, I started seeing someone that worked there as well. So life was cute or whatever. Not perfect, just cute. Then a little carrot was dangled in front of my face. A pharmaceutical company contacted me. Now, why they have to do that for? They wanted to interview me for a position as a pharmaceutical sales rep. And y'all, I have always wanted to do that. And on top of that, the pharmaceutical sales position was $13,000 more than I was making at that organization that I was at the moment. So what did I do? I jumped. I prayed about it. I talked to a few people about it. But here's the difference with that. I did not wait for God's instruction. I basically asked God to bless what I had already decided to do. And those are not the same thing. I took the position. A month later, I lost the man that I was in love with. 2 months after that, I was laid off. And suddenly, the extra $13,000 that I was making did not matter. The title did not matter. The dream position did not matter. That carrot that was dangled in front of my face did not matter. I had lost things that I never thought I would lose. And it took me 7 months to find another job. 7 months. And let me remind you that 2016, the job market was not like it is now. So just imagine if that had happened today. So when God brought that season back into my memory, I realized something. I had already survived without the extra money. In fact, this most recent season of my life, I survived on a part-time job while I was building my business. I remember being scared. I remember wondering, God, what am I going to do? But He took care of me. I survived. I learned how to lean on Him. I learned how to depend on Him. And now here we are again, looking at another opportunity that would give me more money. And I found myself thinking, God, I could do so much with this extra money. And just like before, I felt Him remind me, I will take care of it. And that was it. Because if He took care of me then, and He took care of me through this most recent season, I knew He was going to take care of me now. I didn't know how. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I knew I was going to be okay. So, sitting on that couch, crying, God reminded me, not to scare me, but to remind me. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about God. He will sometimes bring you back to an old chapter, not because you're supposed to live there, but because you're supposed to remember what you learned while you were there. I remember jumping before listening. I remember what happened afterwards. I remember being laid off. I remember losing. I remembered struggling. I remembered surviving. And I remember God's faithfulness. And suddenly I wasn't afraid anymore. And I said, okay, God, I hear you. And by the time I was ready to go to bed that night, I already had my answer. I was going to cancel the interview. I wasn't going. And y'all, if y'all want more confirmation, God gave me a little extra because he knows how I am. He knows that if he tells me something, slaps it in my face, that sometimes I will go ahead and do stuff anyway. So he gave me a little extra on Monday morning. Monday morning, I'm scrolling through Facebook, just scrolling. I come across a post that one of my former employees posted. Yo, why did this post say, when God blesses you with a new beginning, don't repeat old mistakes? I said, dang, God, I got it. You ain't have to post on Facebook. I got it. I hear you. I'm not going to go through with the interview. I went right to work and I wrote that lady an email so fast. I said, okay, God, I got it. You got it. You're right. I was going to do it. I was going to do it. He ain't have to do that. Shout out to CJ. Miss you. So afterwards, I got to thinking. This wasn't really about me turning down a job. Because honestly, the job wasn't bad. As you know, the money wasn't bad. The opportunity was not bad at all. So how do you know when something is good isn't necessarily what God wants you to do? And I think that, I know that's where discernment comes in. Because we can obviously look at an open door and assume, well, God opened it, so it must be meant for me to walk through that door. But is that always true? Because just because something is available doesn't mean that it's assigned to you. And just because something looks good doesn't mean it's God's best for you. And that's what I had to sit with. I had to start asking, does this opportunity look good? And start asking, God, is this what you want from me? And those are two very different questions. And I think this is where Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6 really became real for me. And if you don't know, the verse reads, "Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight." I, like so many of you, have heard that scripture all of our lives. But sometimes you don't really know a scripture until you live it. Because I could see the 15 grand. I could see the better opportunity. I could see the extra things that money can do. My savings, my business. But what I couldn't see was what may happen 6 months from now. I couldn't see what God was doing in my current job. I couldn't see what opportunities could come by me staying. And that's the part we struggle with. We make decisions on what we can see, but God sees the whole picture. And sometimes trusting God is admitting that I don't know what's on the other side of this decision, but God does. And that's what I had to do. I had to stop trying to figure out what opportunity looked better. I had to start asking, which one God was leading me toward. Because something can make perfect sense on paper and still not be what God wants for you. And sometimes obedience means making a decision or going in a direction that may not make sense to everyone else, because you trust the one who can see what you can't. So after everything that happened, I started thinking, what if you're faced with a good opportunity right now, but you're not sure if it's a God opportunity? Here are 3 questions I feel as if we should all ask ourselves. Am I asking God what He wants, or asking Him to bless what I already want? Because like I said earlier, those are 2 different prayers. Sometimes we make up our minds about what we want and we ask God to make us feel good about our decision. But when you surrender, it's like you're saying, God, I want this. But if this is not what you have for me, give me the strength to walk away. That is a completely different prayer. The second thing I want you to ask is, am I being led by faith or pushed by fear? Fear will tell your mind, what if this is my only opportunity? What if this organization never calls me again? What if I don't get another chance? What if I regret saying no? But when you walk out on faith, your mind will say, I don't know what's next, but God, you are still my provider. I had to remember that God took care of me back in 2016. So why would I believe that He couldn't take care of me now? Faith doesn't mean that you're afraid. It means that fear doesn't get to make that decision for you. And the third thing I want you to ask is, am I focused on what's next, that I'm overlooking what God is doing right now? That one really got to me because I was so focused on the possibility of a new job that I was overlooking everything happening in the job that I prayed for. The opportunities, the growth, the people, the freedom, the trust. God was already doing something. And I almost missed it because I was so focused on and looking at what was next. So maybe before you ask God what's next, ask Him, what are you doing here? Because sometimes we're so busy looking for the next door, we don't realize that God is already doing something beautiful in the room that you are currently in. And that's what I had to learn. I don't want God's blessing more than I want God's will. If He says go, I'll go. If He says stay, I'll stay. If He says wait, I will wait. I just want to hear His voice louder than mine. So let me leave you with this. Maybe there's a door in your life that looks good right now. Maybe it's a job, a relationship, a friendship, or maybe it's even a business opportunity. Or maybe it's something that you've been truly, seriously, hardcore praying for. And you're asking God, is this you? Don't be so desperate for the blessing that you forget to listen to the blesser. Don't allow money to make the decision. Don't allow fear to make the decision. Don't allow pressure to make the decision. And don't allow other people's opinions to drown out God's voice. Get quiet. Pray. Pay attention. Remember what God has already done and be willing to obey. Even when obedience does not make sense. Because what I've learned, especially in my adult life, is that when God closes a door, that could be protection. Sometimes he closes doors because he's redirecting you. Sometimes he closes doors because the timing is simply not right. And sometimes he's simply teaching you that you should not chase everything that is good. You can trust him enough to let things go. And if God has something for you, you don't have to manipulate it. You don't have to force it. And you don't have to compromise yourself to keep it. You can trust God with the outcome. And that's where peace comes from. Not knowing exactly what's going to happen, but knowing who's holding what happens next. If this message spoke to you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this message with someone who may be wrestling with a decision right now. And come back next week because I'm going to share another story with you. We are going to keep these conversations going about life, faith, purpose, and all the things that we're trying to figure out along the way. And remember that you don't have to understand every step to trust the one who is ordering your steps. Sometimes the closed door is not rejection, it is protection. It's redirection. It's simply God saying, I have already shown you this, remember. So trust him. Be still. Listen. And when he speaks, have the courage to obey. Because obedience does not always make sense, but it will always be worth it. Until next time, you were given this life because you were strong enough to live it. I love you all. Happy hump day. Have a great rest of the week. You are halfway through. I love you. I love you. Bye for now.